The vast majority of the world's water resources are used by agriculture, and the most productive regions are running out of water. Rising populations, unsustainable irrigation practices, and prolonged droughts are threatening global water supplies and food security like never before.
To improve the water scarcity situation, we must increase our innovations in order to grow more food using less water.
Hey everyone, I'm Tyler. And this is my younger brother, Alex.
And together, we're the Water Brothers. We're going to take you on an adventure around the world to explore the state of our blue planet, a planet defined by water and its ability to sustain life.
So join us on our journey as we explore the world, looking at the most important water stories of our time.
And together, we will learn how to better protect our most precious resource.
The strain of a growing human population that eats more and more food each year is taking an incredible toll on the environment, especially our freshwater resources. While gains in agricultural productivity have helped feed billions, this has come at a heavy cost.
For the most part, current agricultural practices are destroying soil productivity and reducing biodiversity. Countless rivers, lakes, and aquifers are being polluted and pumped dry.
Agriculture is the world's largest consumer of water. About 70% of the water that humanity takes out of the rivers, takes out of the groundwater sources, actually is used for irrigation. By contrast, only about 10% is used for domestic uses, and the remaining 20% is for industry.
We produce more food each year than ever before. But because water is relatively cheap, and many farmers do not have access to water-efficient equipment and technology, many farms are extremely wasteful with water. It's estimated that of the 2,500 trillion liters of fresh water used by agriculture each year, over 60% of it is wasted, never reaching crop roots because of inefficient irrigation methods, leaky infrastructure, and evaporation.
It's no surprise then that the world's biggest food-producing countries are all facing water shortages.
So at the same time as the global population is growing from its current level of about 7 billion up to an expected 9 or perhaps even 11 billion over the next 100 years, we are also experiencing rapid urbanization. And this is significant because urban people tend to eat more resource-intensive diets. They typically have a little bit more cash in their pockets, and they typically buy a bit more in the way of livestock products, dairy, meat, etc.
In 1960, the average person on Earth consumed about 23 kilograms of meat per year. That's in a world of about 3 billion people. Today, in a world of over 7 billion people, the average person on Earth is consuming over 43 kilograms of meat per year. So nearly a doubling in per capita meat consumption on a world scale in the context of human population growth, more than doubling.
Now this is problematic from a water perspective because producing meat and dairy requires more inputs. It requires more feed, it requires more water, it requires more energy. And so these very thirsty forms of agriculture are rising at a time when we are facing an overall global perspective of less water. And so this dietary shift, in addition to the population growth, represents a major challenge to face as the next generation.
The United Nations estimates that if we want to feed the world's rapidly growing population and keep up with rising demand for food, we will need to increase food production by 70% by 2050. To do this, we must figure out clever ways to produce more food using less water.
More water goes into growing our food than many people realize. While an apple may only contain a couple hundred milliliters of water, about 70 liters of water is needed to grow a single apple to market size. That may seem like a lot, but no type of farming requires more water than livestock and dairy production. A single glass of milk requires over 200 liters of water to produce, whereas a single hamburger, well over 2,000 liters.
If we want to use less water and grow more food, we simply have to get much smarter about the process of raising livestock. And one of the best ways to do that is to reduce the amount of wastewater produced on farms. And that's because each one of these cows will produce up to 120 pounds of waste per day. And cleaning all that up requires a lot of water. But it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what's brought us here to McCormick Farms in upstate New York to see how they were using new technology to deal with animal waste.
McCormick Farm started in 1945. We started with potatoes, and then we went into the dairy business, but today we're milking 2,000 cows, and we raise 3,000 acres of potatoes for the potato chip industry.
A cow will drink on average 30 gallons of water a day, and then another 80 gallons will be used for wash, cooling the animals, and so on. So an operation with 2,500 cows will produce 35 million gallons of manure a year. So that's the equivalent of a city of a little more than 400,000 people, the amount of waste that is produced from that.
For decades, McCormick Farms handled wastewater just like any other concentrated animal feeding operation, or CAFO. But a growing concern about the environmental impact and expense of managing vast amounts of manure inspired them to install a state-of-the-art technology called LWR, the Livestock Water Recycling System.
How does manure and wastewater get dealt with on traditional farms, large-scale dairy and livestock operations?
So traditionally, a farm like this would store all of its manure in large lagoons. They store millions and millions of gallons in large lagoons the size of football fields. And then they would take that manure out of the lagoon and they would simply spread it on their land. The catch for that is that spreading on their land, there's only limits as to how much you can spread on so much land before it becomes saturated. There's regulations so that there's not runoff, nutrient excess, and then trucking it. So if you only have so much land, you've got to truck that manure really far, which it's costly and not great for the environment. Obviously, it's creating emissions.
Today, when you have these vast concentrations of animals in huge and growing densities, they produce far more fecal matter than can be absorbed in nearby landscapes. And not only is there the volume question, there's also what that fecal matter contains is very different now.
Although manure is extremely rich in phosphorus and nitrogen and is an important source of fertilizer, when too much is spread in one area, it runs off into local waterways and contributes to the creation of algae blooms that can be toxic and deplete water of life-giving oxygen. Even when manure is applied in correct amounts, it still contains high levels of pesticide and antibiotic residues from feed.
Livestock Water Recycling is a Canadian company that helps farms solve these water pollution and consumption problems at the same time. Technical manager Gareth Jenkins was on hand to give us an up-close look at the LWR system in action.
So Gareth, looks like we've come into the heart of the operation here. Tell us how the system works.
Sure. So what we do is we bring in the manure from that tank in front of us there. We pump it in, we add a couple chemicals to it to get the solids to come out of solution. And it comes up to that big double-barreled stainless steel tank there, which mixes the chemistry in. And then the solids travel down the screen into the screw press, which is going to give it a final squeeze to remove the last little bit of liquids out of it. And the clean liquid will drain through into the tank underneath and then pump onto the rest of the system.
The water's spraying up here. You got to watch out for that, I guess, too?
Well, it does spray a little bit. Normally we have a cover on the screen.
Okay.
We've taken it off so you can get a good idea of how the operation works. The system runs 21 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, so you pretty much all the time. I guess the cows never stop pooping.
They don't stop pooping, no.
Once the manure solids are removed and stored for use as a phosphorus-rich fertilizer, the remaining liquid passes through reverse osmosis membranes that filter out salts, microbes, and other impurities such as chemical and pharmaceutical residues. The byproduct of this stage is a liquid fertilizer that contains high levels of nitrogen.
By separating nitrogen and phosphorus, the system allows farmers to manage fertilizers more precisely, preventing nutrient overloading and pollution on nearby fields and water sources. Any excess nutrients can even be sold off to create an additional revenue stream for farmers. What's left is clean water that is safe enough to be consumed by cows or even people.
All right, one thing left to do.
That's right. Cheers.
I've had recycled wastewater before. This is slightly different, but it tastes good and it just gets cycled right through the system and nice clean water for all the cows to enjoy.
Yep, for sure.
LWR allows 75% of manure liquids to be recycled into potable water that can be reused to provide drinking and wash water for the barns or to irrigate crops.
When you add up all those things, we feel as though it makes it where it pays for itself, or will in a matter of 3 or 4 years.
What was once a troublesome liability has been turned into 3 valuable products that save time and money and prevent water pollution. Farms that have installed the LWR system have reduced their water consumption by over 40% and eliminated the need for large lagoons.
It's become much easier problem to handle in our business. It is a problem. Cow manure is a problem in the dairy industry. People could understand how much dairy farmers, how much effort that we put into having a clean facility, having the cows under the right conditions. I think they'd be surprised on how much we care about our cows. A lot of people have this idea that they don't care about their cows, and that's not true at all. We want the best conditions possible for our cows. A happy cow is what makes you money.
Recycling wastewater on concentrated livestock farms can dramatically reduce the water footprint of meat and dairy production. However, despite the many benefits of this technology, it does not solve the single largest source of water use in animal agriculture: the large volumes of water required to grow feed crops.
Close to a third of the world's arable land is devoted to feed crops. The biggest is maize, second biggest is soybeans. Soybeans is overwhelmingly going not to tofu, it's going to animal feed. Both of those crops have experienced phenomenal growth in both yield, but also in land area over the past half century or so. And also those are very, especially maize, very input-intensive crops.
One of the most effective solutions for lowering water use in agriculture will be to reduce global demand for meat and dairy products and find alternate sources of protein and nutrition in our diets.
We're here at Entomo Farms near Norwood, Ontario, where they're growing some of the healthiest, low-impact food sources on the planet. The only obstacle for some people is that their protein comes from these little guys.
Entomo Farms is a family business founded by 3 brothers that started out farming crickets and other insects for the reptile trade. But the many nutritional and environmental benefits of using insects as human food soon became too big to ignore. We met with one of the brothers, Jared Golden, who took us to the hatching room where the operation begins.
So how many crickets are we surrounded by right now, approximately?
So in the whole facility, there's about 30 to 40 million crickets.
Oh my God.
They're each in pretty large rooms of about 5,000 square feet.
Crickets can be raised in extremely high densities and grow incredibly fast, needing less than 2 months to grow from a hatchling to market size.
The eggs are still white, and the very baby crickets, the new hatchlings, are white as well for about half an hour until they get their exoskeleton, and then they'll turn brown.
So yeah, they're all white, so these ones have just hatched.
They're seconds to minutes old, yeah.
Wow.
There's tens of thousands of crickets in here. All right, so welcome to the big room.
Oh, this is insane.
Yeah.
You said you had millions of them, so now I believe you.
Yeah, this is where you can see them eating in their troughs, drinking their water, growing up into nice, delicious food.
And I'm not going to step on any right
No.
now, am I? Because
No,
I
they
see
will.
them everywhere.
They'll scatter.
They'll scatter, okay.
They're in their condos here for about 4 weeks, eating, drinking, until we eventually harvest them. And then we use ice to put them to sleep, nice and gently, and then we take them over to the processing facility.
And tell us a little bit about what they're eating right now and how much water they need to survive.
So this is a basic grain input, the same grain that you may use in chicken farming, hog farming, or that's related to cow farming even. The amazing thing about crickets is in cows, for example, you need 10 units of feed input to produce 1 unit of food output. And with crickets, 10 units of input produce about 7 units of output. So the traditional beef farming animals are very inefficient converters of food. Crickets are incredible converters of food. That food takes a lot of water to grow. So one of the main reasons they're so efficient in saving water relative to other traditional protein or food farming is their food conversions, as well as how much water they need. For example, it takes about 100 gallons of water to produce a pound of beef protein, and about a gallon of water to produce the same amount of protein from crickets.
So just like a tiny fraction of what it takes to produce beef or other livestock.
Yeah. Another really great analogy is if a family of 4 were to eat insect protein just 1 day a week. So let's say on average, we need about 50 grams of protein a day. If a family of 4 were to eat insect protein 1 day a week for a year, that family of 4 would save the planet almost 1 million liters of water a year.
Just one family?
Just one family of 4.
Once the crickets are full grown, they are transferred to a processing facility to be oven roasted and ground up into a fine powder. One of the best parts about eating crickets is that they can be mixed into almost any common food item to provide a nutritional boost high in protein and other essential nutrients. The possibilities are virtually endless.
So we call crickets the gateway bug. I think you know what the California roll was to sushi. Crickets are to entomophagy, or eating of insects. It's a start, you know. We just need to get people in the door and understanding the tremendous ecological benefits and the amazing health benefits.
So it isn't just eating raw bugs. We're not just coming in here to just take a handful.
It's not fear factor.
Okay.
It's really the future of food.
Yeah.
Eating insects may seem weird, but humans have been eating them ever since we became humans. And today, over 2 billion people still eat insects on a regular basis. Now it's only a matter of convincing people in places like North America that insects are a healthy and tasty alternative to help replace some of the water and resource-intensive protein sources in our diets.
It's hard to predict if insect protein will really take off in North America when cheap, factory-raised meat is still widely available. But regardless of what we're growing and eating, we need to reduce the huge amounts of water that agriculture uses. And one of the best ways to do that is to cut back on the massive amount of food that is wasted each year.
So thanks to population growth, most people think that by 2050 there will be about 9 billion people on the planet, and that unless the farmers produce approximately 70% more food, the world will become hungrier, more violent, and more disease-ridden. While that probably is true and represents a major challenge, we also have to acknowledge the fact that today there is enough food. Today we produce about 2,850 calories, dietary calories per person per day, and we waste about a third of the world's food. So at the same time as we face the imperative to improve production or increase production, we also have to acknowledge that there's a major distribution inequity issue going on as well.
Unfortunately, increasing food production is not that simple. There is only so much arable land available to us unless we cut down more forests. And even the arable land that does exist is being rapidly lost each year due to erosion, pollution, unsustainable farming practices, and climate change. It turns out that one of the easiest and most effective ways to reduce the water footprint and environmental impact of agriculture is to cut down on food waste.
In North America, most of this food waste happens at the retailer and consumer end of the spectrum. So this is vegetables going bad in MyCrisper. This is things passing their best before date and being dropped off in the landfill. And on so many levels, this is a tragedy. This represents a gargantuan investment of resources, of inputs, of time, of labor, of money in a resource that essentially is lost.
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that each year around 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally, costing over $750 billion. Not only does this represent a staggering economic loss to society, but that wasted food required nearly 1,400 trillion liters of water to produce, almost enough to fill Lake Ontario.
It's been estimated that we waste about $31 billion worth of food in Canada. That's 30% of the food that's produced here, and it's equivalent to about 2% of our gross domestic product.
The typical household loses around about $1,500 a year, so $1,500 a year. We estimate that 47% of food waste and loss occurs in the household. Around about 10% occurs at retail, 4% distribution, 10% on the farm, and the remainder is during various stages of processing.
Although most food is wasted in the home, a great deal of food is thrown out on farms before it even reaches store shelves, because retailers and consumers are very picky about the appearance of food. We went to Prince Edward Island to visit a local potato farmer named Stephen Visser, who is confronted with this challenge on a daily basis.
So Alex, this is a box of rejects that we've just run through our line actually, and we've taken all the poor ones out and shipped the good ones.
And what's wrong with some of them? Do you have some examples you can show us?
Yeah, these are some examples of what we're throwing into these. They're hollow in the inside.
Okay.
That's what they are. We're x-raying those, take those out. And then also a lot of these that have the black indents on them and stuff, that's what we're taking out of them.
And some of them just, they're just a little misshapen.
Yeah, like they're kind of rough and they're really not that nice cosmetically, but If you take your knife and cut that away, there's nothing wrong with the potato underneath.
Perfectly good. So
You
just
can
that
eat
one
that.
little mark there.
Yep.
So what would happen to these rejects if they can't go, you know?
These rejects generally go to cattle farmers.
Really?
If there's too many of them in the countryside, then they will get put in a hole and buried.
When farmers like Stephen are forced to sell off a portion of their crop for animal feed at a reduced price, or dispose of potatoes entirely, the costs are ultimately passed off to consumers. It's estimated that food waste can increase the price of certain foods by 10% or more. In PEI, retailers and processors have even pressured farmers to increase their water consumption to grow better-looking potatoes.
There's been a push here in this area to have deep water wells accepted by the general public. In my eyes, it's basically just to grow bigger, cheaper product.
How do they normally get their water?
We normally just do it through rainfall.
Really?
Just rainfall, that's all we count on.
And so the retailers are pressuring you to use aquifers?
Yes.
Really?
To dig deep water wells, yeah. And I mean, sometimes there is a need for it, but a lot of the time, it's just using a real precious resource just to cover needs of retailers and processors, basically.
It doesn't make a better tasting potato?
No. It makes a more consistent quality potato, but that comes at a cost.
While retailers do put farmers in a difficult position to create perfect-looking food, they do so knowing that consumers expect perfection and will not necessarily buy produce that is ugly.
Don't most potatoes end up getting mashed or fried or?
Yep. Rarely does it look the same on a plate as it comes in your bag or when you buy it in the grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, you cook it and you peel it, you fry it, bake it, mash it.
Yeah.
It never looks the same.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's a little misshapen.
It shouldn't matter, no.
No.
Thankfully, retailers around the world are beginning to acknowledge the food waste epidemic and giving consumers the option to buy imperfect produce at a reduced price. Farmers and retailers are also working with charitable organizations to help direct food to people who are in need before it gets wasted. However, since the vast majority of food waste occurs in homes, everyone has a role to play in solving this problem.
We suggest that people go shopping with grocery lists, that they learn how to cook vegetables in multiple ways. So for example, once a carrot goes wilty, you don't have to get rid of it. You can cook it in a soup. You can bake it into muffins. We like to encourage people to learn how to store their food properly so it doesn't rot, and then to share it if they have too much, rather than putting it into the green bin or into the garbage bin.
Whether it's reducing food waste or changing our diets, not only do these solutions help make agriculture more water efficient, they also help solve other major environmental and social challenges, such as climate change, the loss of biodiversity, and global hunger. Practices that help decrease water consumption and pollution in agriculture are some of the most powerful tools to create a healthier planet.
My main challenge in communicating these issues to the general public is this notion that the world is about to run out of food and that we're about to face some enormous collapse due to the world's population growth. And to that, I keep coming back to the fact that in the world today, we have enough food. It's just not distributed right. That approximately 1/7 of the world is overweight or obese, while almost 1/7 of the world is undernourished, and the fact that we waste 1/3 of the world's food. With those statistics in mind, you can't come to the conclusion that we're running out. We have to come to the conclusion that we're using our resources unsustainably, we're using our resources inefficiently, and that really by improving the efficiency and equity of the current system, we can achieve huge amounts of nutrition for huge amounts of people. And that is a more pressing issue than simply boosting production to meet the world's growing population.
There is so much we can be doing to feed the planet using less water.
Some of these solutions will require us to adopt new foods into our diets, but that doesn't mean we all have to eat insects. Sometimes it can be as simple as eating 1 or 2 less meat-based meals per week.
Whatever it is you decide to do, this is a problem we all need to participate in to solve. The health of our food system and our diets is in many ways a reflection of the health of the environment. So anything we can do to make agriculture more sustainable is also good for the quality and taste of our food and our own health.
Most of all, we need to value and appreciate our food more, waste less of it, and support the farmers and companies who are making an effort to feed the world in the most sustainable ways possible.
Join us and dive deeper into the episodes at thewaterbrothers.ca.